That lady just saying.
There.
No, hey.
Go back to Tennessee too.
What do I tell you?
Go back to Tennessee too.
You can.
We don't want you here. All your race bait. You ain't gonna be there. You ain't gonna be there. I should have killed you. Everybody knows you're alive.
James is the lone suspect in the Brooklyn subway attack that left 10 people shot and 19 others injured. Luckily, no one was killed, but some now have a long road to recovery.
Police arrested 28-year-old Australian Brenton Tarrant 36 minutes after the shootings began.
This is Brenton Tarrant, and he is in court facing 92 charges, including 51 counts of murder, 40 attempted murders, and 1 count of terrorism, all tied to the Christchurch mosque shootings. Authorities say that on March 15, 2019, armed with multiple weapons and a head-mounted camera, the 28-year-old Australian made his way to Al Noor Mosque in Christchurch, New Zealand. On his way, he began to live stream to make sure the public got in on his planned attack.
They did confirm that it seems that a video of one of the shootings at least had been distributed live, was broadcast live, streamed live on social media.
Before the attack, Tarrant had already sent out a 74-page manifesto to dozens of people, including the New Zealand Prime Minister. In the manifesto, he detailed his white supremacist ideology and anti-Muslim rhetorics. Once he had successfully gotten inside the mosque, Tarrant opened fire on the unsuspecting worshippers who came for their Friday prayers.
A gunman with an automatic weapon has opened fire on a mosque in central Christchurch. We are on standby for a statement from the Prime Minister at 4 o'clock. There are unconfirmed reports as many as 27 people are dead, including children. We must stress those numbers are unconfirmed, just reports at this stage.
Tape, and you can hear that shots have already been fired. Yet the sound from inside the mosque is muffled. People walk by, but their calm is soon shattered. There's panic. 300 meters up the road.
In just over 2 minutes, he fired 144 rounds, leaving only to reload, and then returning to finish off the wounded. Among the dead that day was a 3-year-old boy shot and killed. Reports say Mukad ran towards the gunman, probably believing this incident was a play and was gunned down. But the nightmare was far from over. After this attack, Tarrant then drove to a second mosque, Linwood Islamic Center, and carried out another attack, killing 7 more. On his way to a third location, police officers rammed his vehicle and intercepted and arrested him.
Police arrested 28-year-old Australian Brenton Tarrant 36 minutes after the shootings began.
In total, 51 people were killed and 40 more were injured from his attack, leaving behind a trail of heartbroken and grieving families and loved ones.
And so the funerals continue, including that of the first man to die, a 71-year-old Afghan refugee who'd greeted the killer at the doors of the mosque with the words, "Welcome, brother." The guns used that day will be outlawed.
In court, prosecutors told the jury that this was a deliberate attack. Tarrant had carefully planned his attack days ahead to make sure he inflicted maximum casualties. He had even scouted out the mosques beforehand to analyze possible entrance and exit routes. During victim impact statements, relatives and survivors all came to court to confront the killer who had torn their lives apart.
You hurt my father, but you never took him away from me. What I mean by this is that you physically hurt him, but you gifted my father with becoming a martyr, and he has now returned to Allah, God.
Eddy, the judge also had this to say to Tarrant before sentencing.
Each murder was the product of calculated and lengthy planning and was committed with a high level of cruelty and callousness. Some of your victims were children. Your act of terrorism resulted in the murder of 51 people and the serious wounding of 40 more. You shot people in the back and ignored the pleas of the wounded to be spared. You advanced on them, stood over them, and viciously took their lives.
Tarrant was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. It was the first time in New Zealand's history such a sentence was handed down.
On each of the 51 charges of murder, charges 1 to 51, you were sentenced to life imprisonment. I order that you serve the sentences without parole. On each of the 40 charges of attempted murder, charges 52 to 91, you were sentenced to concurrent terms of 12 years imprisonment.
Tarrant stood in court completely emotionless as he received the sentence.
On the charge of committing a terrorist act, charge 92, you were sentenced to life imprisonment.
Outside the courtroom, families and relatives of the victims, survivors, and supporters celebrated the judgment.
He tried to look like he doesn't care, and I'm very sure that he was so much screaming and crying inside him.
Brenton Tarrant showed no emotion as the heaviest sentence in New Zealand's history was read out loud. But Frank James, he was different, meticulously planning out a heartless attack in disguise.
James is the lone suspect in the Brooklyn subway attack that left 10 people shot and 19 others injured.
This is Frank James, and he is facing federal charges of terrorism and violence committed in a mass transit system. On April 12, 2022, during New York's morning rush hour, the 62-year-old entered a Brooklyn subway car disguised as a construction worker. He had planned this for years.
I'm on my way to Philadelphia.
Wearing a neon vest and gas mask, James ignited 2 smoke bombs, then opened fire. Commuters were trapped in the train, unable to see or flee, and screams filled the car as bullets tore through the thick smoke.
James is the lone suspect in the Brooklyn subway attack that left 10 people shot and 19 others injured. Luckily, no one was killed, but some now have a long road to recovery.
In total, 10 people were shot. Dozens more suffered injuries while trying to escape, but miraculously, no one died. James fled the scene and evaded capture for 36 hours. Then, in a surprising twist, he called police himself and turned himself in near a McDonald's in the East Village.
30-hour manhunt. The suspect who allegedly opened fire on a crowded subway train in New York City is behind bars. 62-year-old Frank James was arrested this afternoon in Manhattan's Lower East Side.
Authorities found disturbing videos he'd posted online days earlier on his YouTube channel, ranting about violence and the legal system.
Our black sister Supreme Court Justice, power to the people, is married to a white man.
They also recovered numerous pieces of evidence linking James to the crime at the scene.
2 bags were found at the scene. One contained a firearm registered to James, a U-Haul key, and multiple bank cards with the name Frank James. A second contained fireworks filled with black powder. Then there was the U-Haul found 5 miles from the scene that records show James rented here in Philadelphia. According to authorities, they've gathered images of James riding the U-Haul into Brooklyn yesterday morning.
In court, James pleaded guilty and apologized to his victims.
64-year-old Frank James apologized to the victims. They in no way deserve to have what happened to them, he said, explaining that what he did was to draw attention to mental health services he received over the years that he felt were inadequate. His attorney had asked for a sentence of 18 years, noting James' age, physical health issues, and his mental illness.
But the judge had a different outlook on the situation.
The judge wasn't having it, telling James that what he did cannot be excused or explained away with mental illness.
He received 10 life sentences, 1 for each victim shot in the subway that morning.
New tonight, the man responsible for the mass shooting in a subway car last year will spend the rest of his life behind bars. Frank James sentenced today for opening fire during the morning rush in Brooklyn.
Frank James expressed remorse in court, but Rahimi didn't blink or show any hint of regret, even after he was sentenced.
But the perpetrator was not remorseful at all. He definitely spoke about himself.
This is Rahimi, and he is in court facing federal charges for a string of bombings that terrorized the New York metropolitan area in September 2016. It began on the morning of September 17th, when a pipe bomb exploded inside a trash can near a U.S. Marine Corps charity run in Seaside Park, New Jersey. No one was hurt, but that wasn't luck, because the race had been delayed. If the runners had passed just minutes earlier, it could have been a massacre. That same night, panic gripped the Chelsea neighborhood in Manhattan. A pressure cooker bomb packed with metal BBs and ball bearings exploded on a crowded street. 31 people were injured. A second device was found just a few blocks away, but luckily, it never went off.
2 pressure cookers detonated in Chelsea back on September 17, 2016, that left 30 people injured. A pipe bomb device left at the scene of the Seaside Semper 5 charity race in New Jersey did not explode.
Investigators would later discover that Rahimi had planted multiple devices throughout New York and New Jersey, some of which failed to detonate and were safely dismantled by the bomb squad. Surveillance footage caught him calmly towing 2 suitcases, each packed with explosives, through the streets, planting them with ease.
Brittany actually had sent you stuff, and she was sent me just one plastic white thing.
Well, other stuff.
She said she sent you things that she sent me. I don't know what she sent you. My email said that she sent you.
By now, a multi-agency manhunt was underway. Police finally found Rahimi sleeping outside a bar in Linden, New Jersey. When officers approached and asked his name, Rahimi responded by pulling a gun from his hoodie and opening fire. A shootout followed and dozens of rounds were exchanged, with Rahimi struck multiple times before being taken into custody alive.
That's definitely him.
He was later arraigned from a hospital bed, hooked up to machines, pleading not guilty to 4 federal charges: using weapons of mass destruction, bombing a public space, property destruction using explosives, and using a destructive device during a violent crime. But the evidence was overwhelming. Prosecutors laid out a detailed timeline, physical evidence, video surveillance, and forensic links that painted a clear picture of calculated domestic terrorism. The jury agreed. Rahimi was found guilty on all counts. Ahmad Rahimi was sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole. His victims and survivors, who hoped for a show of remorse, were severely disappointed.
Justice, or feel some kind of way to feel relief, but the perpetrator was not remorseful at all. He definitely spoke about himself. He didn't even care about us. I thought that today was probably a day for us, but it didn't feel like that at all.
Rahimi remained stone-faced as life without parole was handed down. But what about this 19-year-old that had a manifesto and carried out his heartless deeds without remorse? This is 19-year-old Peyton Gendron, and he is in court facing charges of first-degree murder and a possible life in prison after carrying out one of the deadliest and most racially motivated mass shootings in recent U.S. history.
There is no place for you or your ignorant, hateful, and evil ideologies in a civilized society. There can be no mercy for you, no understanding, no second chances. The damage you have caused is too great, and the people you have hurt are too valuable.
On May 14th, 2022, Gendron loaded his car with ammunition, strapped on body armor, armed himself with an assault rifle inscribed with white supremacist slogans, and drove over 200 miles from his hometown of Conklin, New York, to Buffalo. But this wasn't a spontaneous act of violence. Prosecutors said it was a calculated mission. Gendron had purposefully driven over 200 miles to a Tops Friendly Markets grocery store, located in a predominantly black neighborhood. His motive was detailed in an explicit 180-page manifesto online Gendron had already published online, outlining his desire to start a race war and kill as many black Americans as possible. At around 2:30 p.m., Gendron pulled into the parking lot and began to live stream the massacre. Armed with a camera and high-capacity magazines, he immediately opened fire on the unsuspecting citizens.
When I first saw him shooting, he shot a woman, he shot a deacon, he shot another woman, and then he went in the store and started shooting again.
10 people were murdered in the span of minutes, while 3 others were injured but survived. It was chaos.
My granddaughter works there. She heard the shooting, so she took herself and ran in the bathroom and locked the door.
I frequent this store all the time. I've never been afraid to be here. I am now.
By the time police arrived, Gendron was preparing to turn the gun on himself. Officers talked him down and arrested him on the spot. Investigators later revealed chilling details. The shooter had mapped the store's layout, rehearsed his entry route, and decorated his weapon with the names of past mass murderers. Every detail had been rehearsed.
It was straight up racially motivated hate crime from somebody outside of our community.
This is the worst nightmare that any community can face.
In court, prosecutors didn't hold back. They called Gendron a domestic terrorist, motivated by pure hatred and emboldened by online radicalization.
On May 14th of 2022, this defendant displayed a callous disregard for human life. He drove over 200 miles out of his way with one mission, with one goal: to kill as many black people as possible. During that 3-hour drive, he could have turned around, but he wouldn't be deterred. He was steadfast to accomplish his goal of killing as many black people as possible and starting a race war.
The courtroom was packed with grieving families. One by one, they stood to give their victim impact statements.
Hello, I'm Vion Elliott. I'm Andre McNeil's brother. Me and Andre are 11 months and 8 days apart. On the 28th, I'll turn 53. On March 8th, he'll turn 54. Peyton, you took this from me. You took the last of my line.
And at one point, a family member lunged toward Gendron in rage, forcing court officers to intervene.
No, our kid. We never go in no neighborhoods and take people out. Don't do it.
The teenager sat motionless for most of the proceedings. At sentencing, he stood and delivered an apology.
For stealing the lives of your loved ones. I cannot express how much I regret all the decisions I made leading up to my actions on May 14th. I did a terrible thing that day. I shot and killed people because they were black. Looking back now, I can't believe I actually did it. I believed what I read online and acted out of hate.
But nothing could bring back the lives of their loved ones gone. And no amount of remorse could undo that damage because Gendron chose hate.
There is no place for you or your ignorant, hateful, and evil ideologies in a civilized society.
Peyton Gendron was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
A1 felony. That you be sentenced to life imprisonment without parole.
Gendron remained emotionless as he learnt his fate, but this defendant turned his sentencing into an uproar that got him dragged out of court. This is Jeremy Christian, a 37-year-old man who is standing trial in Multnomah County, Oregon, facing 2 counts of first-degree murder, attempted murder, assault, and a list of hate-driven felonies. According to prosecutors, it all began on May 26, 2017, on a Max light rail train in Portland. Christian boarded like any regular passenger, but within moments, it became clear this was anything but routine. He began hurling racist and anti-Muslim slurs at 2 teenage girls, both black, one of them wearing a hijab. Witnesses described the tirade as loud, violent, and terrifying. That's when 3 men, Talisa Namkai Meche, Ricky Best, and Micah Fletcher, stood up to intervene and protect the girls. But Christian had no interest in backing down. If anything, the confrontation turned physical, and right there, on a crowded commuter train, in broad daylight and in the presence of multiple witnesses, Jeremy Christian did the unthinkable. He pulled out a knife and began stabbing, striking all 3 men. Ricky Best, a 53-year-old Army veteran and father of 4, died on the train. Taliesin Namkai Meche, just 23 years old, died later at the hospital. Only Micah Fletcher, although critically wounded, somehow survived. After this attack, Christian got off the train calmly, like nothing had happened. But investigators quickly caught up to him, and what they found painted a chilling picture of a man already spiraling. Just one day before the deadly stabbing, Christian had attacked another black woman, Demetria Hester, shouting racial slurs and throwing a glass bottle at her face. She survived and would later face him in court. During the trial, prosecutors portrayed Christian as consumed by hatred, emboldened by his beliefs, and eager to lash out at anyone who challenged him.
Basically just like telling us that because of our religion or because of our color that we don't deserve to be here and that we don't deserve to live.
The defense tried to argue self-defense, that Christian only attacked because he felt threatened when the 3 men confronted him.
Here's your question. One of your questions. Whether the state has proven at the end of the evidence to you, beyond a reasonable doubt, Mr. Christian's real-time belief was not reasonable taking into account the circumstances that were present and Mr. Christian's self-preservation instinct.
He was saying, "F Muslims," saying, "Go back to Saudi Arabia."
But the jury didn't buy it.
On count one, the verdict is guilty. That's murder in the first degree.
And then came sentencing. Among the people who came to speak was Demetria Hester, the very woman Christian had attacked the day before the murders.
And to Mr. Jeremy Christian, your mom should have swallowed you. You are a waste of breath. And when you die and go to hell, I hope you rot.
And then,
No, hey.
Go back to Tennessee too.
What did I tell you?
Go back to Tennessee too.
You can.
We don't want you here.
Fine,
All your race bait. You ain't gonna be mayor either. You ain't gonna be mayor either. Four. I should have killed you. Everybody knows you're alive.
days later, he returned. This time, he was in shackles, but most importantly, he was now silent and sober. And that's when the judge delivered the final sentence. 2 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 22 years.
Consecutive life sentences, those 2 life sentences, he will also serve an additional 26 years in prison. Reporting live outside the courthouse, Jacqueline Abad, Coin 6 News.
His reaction.
I showed 2 people who confronted me while I was sitting in my seat. And I said, what are you going to do? We're going to fight, but I'm not backing down. That's what happened. They wanted to fight. Maybe not Chili, maybe not Ricky Best, but they involved themselves in the situation. Sadly, they have died. And I do regret that 2 people died, but I do not regret my actions that led to their death. Nor was it my explicit intent to murder anyone.
Much calmer after his earlier outburst, but still without remorse. The next killer on our list took things to an even darker level. This is Jaleel Hoskins, a 26-year-old man now on trial for the murder of his ex-girlfriend, Latrice Maize, a mother of 5. The case began in March 2013. Latrice Maize was reported missing after she failed to return home. She was last seen at her apartment on Brutin Street, SW in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Days later, police located her body in a dumpster outside a Wyoming apartment complex. Investigators began the search for Maize's killer, and soon enough, they had their eyes on Jaleel, the last person known to be with her. In court, prosecutors claimed that Maize had been planning to speak with law enforcement about an assault involving him and the father of 2 of her children, and Hoskins allegedly saw that as a threat. They argued that Hoskins' response was premeditated and an attempt to cover up a crime. They claimed he deliberately killed Maize, then disposed of her body in a dumpster. But the courtroom heard a different version of events when the defense stood before the court. At first, Jaleel denied any involvement in Maize's death.
I have nothing to do with the murder. I have nothing to do with the disappearance.
But then, he enters a plea of guilty to second-degree murder, maintaining that Maize's death was an accident.
And then today, in the middle of his murder trial, Jaleel Hoskins broke down, admitting he killed his girlfriend, Latrice Maize, and tossed her into a dumpster.
But the prosecution believed otherwise, and they had a string of witnesses to prove their case.
After the domestic or whatever happened, I guess she, after they left, she said she was going to tell the police that he stabbed her baby daddy.
And so, despite the defense's claims that it was a tragic accident, the jury and the judge weren't convinced. Throughout the proceedings, Hoskins remained calm, but that calmness did not last. As Judge James Robert Redford delivered the sentence 50 to 100 years in prison, effectively life without parole, Hoskins snapped. And it didn't end there. As Hoskins was hauled out by officers, his family erupted too, shouting across the aisle at Maize's grieving relatives.
Unexpected development. You didn't expect him to actually admit to this, correct?
Correct. We didn't expect it at all. It surprised everybody, including the judge. And
Jaleel Hoskins might have lost control when the judge read his sentence, but at least he waited for sentencing. For Ronnie O'Neal, he turned the entire court trial into a stage, and he was the defendant, the lawyer, and the chaos.
I'm here to play around with y'all. God damn it or not. All right.
This is Ronnie O'Neal, a man facing multiple charges, including the murders of his girlfriend and their 9-year-old disabled daughter. On March 18, 2018, emergency services were called to a horrifying scene in Riverview, Florida.
She made that call
with fear in her voice.
Authorities claimed Ronnie O'Neal fatally shot his girlfriend, Kenyatta Barron, then turned his rage on their 9-year-old disabled daughter, who he killed with a hatchet. O'Neal also attacked his 8-year-old son, stabbing him repeatedly before setting the house ablaze. The boy, although badly injured and burned, managed to escape and later became a key witness in the courtroom.
The words that came out of this little boy's mouth were not a cry for help. They were not a help me or a painful cry. They will tell you the first words that came out of this little brave boy's mouth: my daddy killed my mommy.
Despite the overwhelming evidence and survivor testimony, Ronnie O'Neal did not accept a plea deal. Instead, he made a decision that would define the entire courtroom experience. In court, O'Neal stunned the courtroom by deciding to represent himself alongside his attorney, taking on the role of both defendant and co-defense attorney in a capital murder case.
The evidence is going to show my son did not see me murder his mom. The evidence is going to show he did not see me shoot his mom.
And he didn't hold back his opinions. He claimed he was framed. He denied parts of the prosecution's account.
And the evidence is going to show that law enforcement tampered with evidence.
Loud, O'Neal delivered impassioned opening statements, and then he cross-examined witnesses himself, including the one person who survived his actions that night.
Did I hurt you that night of this incident? Yes. I did. And how did I hurt you? You stabbed me.
As the trial neared its end, O'Neal's courtroom behavior grew more aggressive and unhinged.
You will know the truth, whether in this trial or the next one. Better believe it. Because if you think I'm here to play around with y'all, God damn it, I'm not.
All right, Mr.
I am not sorry for something I didn't do, and I am not sorry for the things I did do.
But O'Neal's strategy did little to sway the jury, and the verdict was clear.
But I'm going to look you in the eye and tell you, this is the worst case ever in my life, and I have seen some horrors. But this is it. And I'm going to mete out the punishment that I think this case deserves.
On July 23, 2021, the court sentenced him to 3 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 90 years.
As count 1, Mr. O'Neal, I will adjudicate you guilty, sentence you to life in prison with a minimum mandatory of life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Ronnie O'Neal gave the courtroom a performance they would never, ever forget. But what happens when the real disturbance wasn't only in the witness box or the defense table, but also in the gallery seats? Because when Shondell Jackson was sentenced, it wasn't just him who snapped. This is Shondell Jackson, a 19-year-old man facing charges of armed robbery and first-degree murder in the state of Maryland. His victim, 24-year-old Nathan Potter, was gunned down during a robbery that turned deadly. The incident happened in 2009. According to investigators, Shondell Jackson, then 18, along with an accomplice, confronted Nathan Potter in an attempted robbery. But when they discovered that Potter had no money on him, things escalated fatally. Prosecutors claimed that instead of fleeing the scene, Jackson pulled the trigger, shooting and killing Nathan in cold blood. Jackson also fled the state in an attempt to evade law enforcement, eventually crossing state lines into Mississippi. After a manhunt that spanned multiple states, he was arrested in Gulfport and extradited back to Maryland to face charges following a tip from his uncle to the police.
I believe I did the right thing, and there's nobody can make me change that.
In court, Jackson's mother pleaded for leniency.
When I saw it on the news, I even cried. I'm like, oh my God, I can't imagine what that mother is going through. I never had a clue that my child had anything to do with it. My son is not a monster. He is not a monster.
But Jackson himself showed little to no remorse. Multiple times during the trial, courtroom cameras caught him smirking, laughing, and even making gestures toward the grieving family of the victim. But justice was closing in, as the prosecution had built a strong case, detailing not just the robbery, but Jackson's actions afterward, including fleeing across state lines to avoid arrest. He was convicted of first-degree murder and armed robbery, and then came the sentencing.
Because he's the one who told police that Shondell was hiding down in Mississippi. He calls the sentence against his nephew fair.
The judge handed down a life sentence without the possibility of parole, and that's when Shondell Jackson snapped. But while the victim's family might have thought justice has been served, Shondell's family clearly did not think so.
Courtroom.
Shondell Jackson and his family clearly had no regard for justice, nor remorse. But how about Nicholas Cruz, a teenager who targeted school children? This is Nicholas Jacob Cruz, who was charged with 17 counts of premeditated first-degree murder and 17 counts of attempted first-degree murder in Parkland, Florida.
Count 1 of the indictment, the murder in the first degree of Luke Hoyer, the court imposes a sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Cruz was a former student at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. On February 14, 2018, he entered the school armed with an AR-15 style rifle and opened fire on students and staff. In just minutes, 17 people were killed and 18 others wounded, making it the deadliest high school shooting in U.S. history. Cruz fled the scene on foot, blending in with fleeing students before being arrested about an hour later in Coral Springs. Sheriff Scott Israel faced criticism for his handling of the case and was ultimately fired alongside other police officers. The sheriff's negligence was highlighted. On February 5, 2016, an anonymous tip came into the Broward Sheriff's Office from someone who saw Nicholas Cruz, just 17 at the time, threatening on Instagram to carry out a school shooting and sharing a picture of himself armed with guns. That crucial info got passed along to Deputy Scott Peterson, who was serving as the school resource officer right there at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. Then, on September 23, 2016, a peer counselor reached out to Peterson with concerns about Cruz possibly trying to end his life by drinking gasoline, along with reports of self-harm through and his interest in purchasing a firearm. Although a mental health expert recommended against forcing him into commitment, the school stepped up and promised to run a full threat evaluation on him. Just 5 days later, on September the 28th, 2016, a caseworker from the Florida Department of Children and Families wrapped up their investigation, declaring Cruz mentally stable, even though they noted recent self-inflicted marks on his arms. His mother, Linda Cruz, opened up about his history of scrawling hateful messages on his backpack and his recent chats about acquiring weapons. Fast forward to September 24th, 2017, when a YouTube commenter using the handle Nicholas Cruz left a chilling remark about aspiring to be a professional school shooter. That red flag got flagged to the FBI's office in Mississippi, but sadly, they never linked it back to the Nicholas Cruz down in South Florida. On November 1st, 2017, Linda Cruz's cousin, Catherine Blaine, contacted the Broward Sheriff's Office in a panic, warning them that Cruz had guns in his possession and begging for help in getting them taken away. In the end, a trusted family friend stepped in and agreed to hold on to the weapons as documented by the Sheriff's Office. Later that month, on November 29, 2017, the family in Palm Beach County who had welcomed Cruz into their home after his mother's passing dialed up the local sheriff's office to report a heated brawl between him and their 22-year-old son. One family member shared that Cruz had vowed to grab his gun in return, admitting he'd previously pointed firearms at people's heads. Even so, they chose not to press for an arrest, hoping things would cool off once he settled down. The very next day, on November 30th, 2017, another call poured into the Broward Sheriff's Office, this time from someone in Massachusetts, who raised alarms about Cruz hoarding guns and knives, labeling him a potential school shooter in the making. The deputy on the line suggested the caller pivot to reaching out directly to the Palm Beach sheriff instead. Early in the new year, on January 5th, 2018, an urgent message hit the FBI's national tip line, detailing Cruz's stated desire to kill people and warning of a possible school attack. Tragically, that vital alert never made its way to the FBI field office in Miami. And then, on February 14th, 2018,
another town in America is mourning the victims of a school shooting. This time,
It's a small community in Kentucky.
The worst grade school shooting in U.S. history, at least 27 dead, 20 children, 7 adults, including the principal.
Deputy Scott Peterson, the on-site resource officer, pulled his weapon while standing just outside the building amid the gunfire targeting students and teachers, but he stayed put and never went inside to confront the threat. During the case against Nicholas Cruz, Judge Elizabeth Scherer addressed both the perpetrator and the court.
Count 1 of the indictment, the murder in the first degree of Luke Hoyer, the court imposes a sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole. Count 2 of the indictment, the murder in the first degree of Martin Duque Anquiano, the court imposes a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole.
She pronounced one by one 34 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole for Cruz, 1 each for the slain. And what did Cruz think of this?
Mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole. Count 9, for the murder in the first degree of Christopher Hickson, the court imposes a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole.
Nothing. Unremorseful. But what happens when a teen is meticulous with malicious crimes? This is Shelia Ray Eddy, who was charged with first-degree murder in Wayne Township, Pennsylvania.
I ask that you exercise your discretion in face of the request of the state that she be remanded to the adult jurisdiction of the Division of Corrections, that she be given the period of at least 1 month time period within which to remain in juvenile services.
Shelia Eddy and her accomplice, Rachel Schoaf, were once best friends with Skylar Neese, but on July 6, 2012, that friendship turned deadly. On that night in Star City, West Virginia, Shelia and Rachel lured Skylar out of her home. After driving to a remote area in Pennsylvania, the 2 girls attacked Skylar with knives, stabbing her multiple times until she died. The crime was chillingly premeditated and carried out with cold precision. The secret was revealed months later when Rachel Schoaf, overwhelmed by guilt, confessed to the police and led them to Skylar's body. The legal proceedings unfolded quickly after this. Rachel Schoaf pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and accepted a 30-year sentence with parole eligibility after 10 years. Shelia Eddy, on the other hand, faced a more severe sentence.
Of the offense of murder in the first degree upon your plea of guilty, it is the sentence of the court that you've been imprisoned in the West Virginia State Penitentiary for the rest of your natural life.
Shelia's reaction?
That under the terms of my retention as Ms. Sheila Eddy's counsel, I will remain her counsel for all post-conviction matters into the foreseeable future.
Very well. I appreciate that. Thank you. Concludes the hearing.
All rise.
Stoic resignation and mild confusion. Shelia's crime was a complete betrayal. But what about Aiden Fucci, who in an unusual display of detached coldness when he murdered his neighbor? This is Aiden Sean Fucci, who was charged with first-degree murder in St. Johns County, Florida.
I would submit that this case is probably the most difficult and shocking case that this county in St. Johns County has dealt with. In the 20 years that I have been, or 16 years that I have been practicing law, and the 30 years that I have lived and worked in this, all of Northeast Florida, this case is one of only a very small few that had this level and this type of impact on the community.
Tristyn Tyne Bailey was a 13-year-old middle school cheerleader, full of energy and promise, when her life was tragically cut short. On Mother's Day, May 9th, 2021, in Florida, Fucci, a 14-year-old classmate, lured Tristyn away from home. Surveillance footage caught them walking together late at night before Fucci fled alone, shoes in hand. Later that day, Tristyn's body was found in a wooded area, bearing 114 stab wounds, nearly half of which were defensive, showing her desperate struggle. Authorities discovered evidence linking Fucci directly to the crime, including bloody clothes and a knife with the tip missing, which matched a fragment found in Tristyn's scalp. Fucci was arrested and initially charged with second-degree murder, later upgraded to first-degree premeditated murder. According to friends, Fucci had expressed a desire to kill someone, to see what it felt like, and to watch them bleed out. A drawing discovered in his possession showed this desire. Bewildered by the case, the judge addressed the court.
114 stab wounds, 49 defensive wounds, 35 wounds to the head and neck, 29 to the back and shoulder, and 6 fatal wounds. This court has reviewed and seen more than its fair share of autopsy photos. The autopsy photos in this particular case were particularly difficult. The 49 defensive wounds indicate that Tristyn Bailey was conscious, that she was aware, and that she was doing everything she could to fend off this attack. She suffered a painful, horrifying death from someone that she trusted. Indicated that how he was going to do it, that he would take them into a wooded place, that he would stab them, he would kill them and then run away so that he could keep on killing. He told his best friend that he wanted to kill someone to see what it felt like, and he wanted to watch them bleed out.
It was after his address that he sentenced Fucci.
Mr. Fucci, having entered a plea of guilty to the crime of first-degree murder, I adjudicate you guilty of the premeditated first-degree murder of Tristyn Bailey. I sentence you to life in prison.
And on Fucci's face, the coldness the judge spoke about was very visible. Aiden Fucci is now serving his sentence in the Florida Department of Corrections, where he will remain for decades before any chance of review. Shocking as his crime was, Aiden Fucci was punished. But what happens when a young offender tries to deceive the jury? This is Dylan Schumacher, who was charged with second-degree murder in Florida for the death of his girlfriend's 23-month-old son.
I loved him a lot. Austin Smith was completely defenseless. That's a given. But there were other dynamics at work there.
Shoemaker was accused of killing Austin Smith, the in his care. The incident involved fatal injuries that led to the child's death, sparking a harrowing investigation. On July 23, 2013, Shoemaker was recorded on a phone call revealing a chilling plan to manipulate his jury with tears. And true to his word, he tried to carry out his plan.
I can't take back what was done. I wish I could. I would give my life for Austin. I loved him a lot.
The judge was not impressed.
Who minimizes his actions.
The record will show that you admitted that on July 23, 2013, in a phone call to your mother from the holding center, you stated, and I got a quote from the court reporter, "I am a 16-year-old blonde. Probably all I have to do is cry in front of the jury, and they're going to feel sorry for me." End quote.
The defense had argued for Shoemaker.
Smith was completely defenseless. That's a given. But there were other dynamics at work there, including my client's inability to either control his anger or frustration and his inexperience in babysitting.
Based on his short life now, what is to say he won't do this again?
However, the judge challenged that.
Well, we don't know that. I think it's completely unlikely. It was a situational, circumstantial thing.
And Shoemaker's plan quickly unraveled in court. The judge's sentencing followed.
The judgment of this court that upon your conviction for the crime of murder in the second degree, that you be sentenced to an indeterminate term of imprisonment which will have a maximum of life, the court hereby imposes a minimum sentence of 25 years.
Dylan's reaction.
The surcharge is $300, the crime victim's assistance fee is $25, and the $50 DNA databank fee, all to be paid out of prison funds. You have 30 days within which to file a notice of appeal.
Thank you.
The tears were gone, somehow. For Dylan, he tried to manipulate the court and failed. But what happens when a murder suspect who meticulously tried to cover up his crime is sentenced in court? This is Taji Brutin, who was charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder, armed robbery, and evidence tampering in Marion County, Florida.
Atkins was only convicted of 1 first-degree murder, and to suggest that this defendant deserves the same sentence would almost suggest that he gets 2 free murders, because one person who's a juvenile commits a murder and gets 40 years. So we're going to give someone who's convicted of 3 murders the same sentence? That they don't stand on the same. They're not the same individual.
3 teenagers lay dead in Akawa, victims of a chilling robbery spree gone horribly wrong. Taji Brutin, only 16 at the time, faced the harshest charges as the mastermind behind the killings. Between March 30th and April 1st, 2023, Layla Silvernail, Michael Hodo Jr., and Camille Quarles were found shot to death in locations around Akawa. Layla was discovered near a dumpster, critically wounded, and later died at the hospital. Michael was found by the roadside. Camille was hidden in the trunk of Layla's submerged vehicle. Though under 18, Brutin was tried as an adult due to the severity and premeditation of the crimes. When the case made it to court, what happened next would seal Brutin's fate. First, the judge clarified Brutin's part in his crimes.
The thing is that he orchestrated the death of 3 juveniles without any pretense or any justification in any sense whatsoever. He did that at the time after cutting off his electronic monitor for a juvenile offense for offensive carjacking. He did this offense within a couple of months of being placed on the electronic monitor. I just find that the seriousness and the heinousness of these offenses outweigh any mitigation that's been placed in front of the court.
And then the sentence came.
Offenses. I want to go down each of them individually so that can be made clear. In case number 23 CF 1860, guilty of murder in the first degree with a firearm involving the death of Michael Hodo. He's ordered to serve life imprisonment. In case that was count 1. In count 2, he's adjudicated guilty of murder in the first degree with a firearm involving the death of Layla Danielle Silvernail. In that case, he will serve life imprisonment. In count 3, he'll be adjudicated guilty of murder in the first degree with a firearm involving Camille Quarles. In count 4, robbery with a firearm.
And the hand of justice kept coming down hard.
He is the B defendant. He will be ordered to serve life imprisonment. In count 5, robbery with a firearm. Excuse me. I misread that. It's count 3. Count 4 is robbery with imprisonment. Count 5, robbery with a firearm. He will be ordered to serve life imprisonment. Count 6, let me go back. Count 4 and 5, he's adjudicated guilty of robbery with a firearm.
Judge, he's only charged with 1 robbery firearm in this case. That other robbery is Mr. Robinson. Yes.
I'm trying to read this and think at the same time. He's adjudicated guilty in count 4 of robbery with a firearm as the B defendant, or serve life in imprisonment. Count 5, he is not in that offense.
And what did Brutin make of this?
1344, 20 CCF 1345. All right. Good luck to you, sir. You have 30 days to file an appeal. There is a $100 fine in court costs on count 1.
He clearly was not happy. Taj Brutin wasn't happy with the verdict in court, but what about Scarlett and Eddy, 2 teenagers who planned the murder of their own friend? This is Eddy Ratcliffe and Scarlett Jenkinson, who were charged with murder in Warrington, England.
Taking the evidence as a whole, I find that the impact of your ASD on your culpability is limited.
2 teenagers, both just 15 years old at the time, stood accused of a brutal crime that shook their community to its core. Scarlett Jenkinson and Eddy Ratcliffe lured 16-year-old Brianna Ghey to Culcheth Linear Park in February 2023. There, in a horrifying act, Brianna was stabbed 28 times and killed. The attack was not spontaneous. It was a calculated, premeditated murder. Jenkinson, obsessed with serial killers and driven by dark motives, had even attempted to poison Brianna months before. Ratcliffe, a quiet but knife-obsessed youth, provided the weapon and was complicit in the deadly act. And the police arrested the pair within a day, charging them with murder.
Pardon?
How come I'm a suspect?
How come you're a suspect?
Because I'm the last person at scene, or is it?
I don't know. All the information I've received is you are a suspect, okay?
You Eddy?
Yeah.
Eddy, you're locked up suspicion of murder, alright? You don't have to say anything, but you may harm you eventually don't mention when questioned. See you later line in court, and if you do say we evidence, do you understand?
Unlock these.
Well, the sentencing would reflect not only the brutal nature of the attack, but also the young age and mental health considerations of the defendants. What the judge would say next would underscore the severity and complexity of this tragic case.
Point, but for the mitigation, particularly that relating to maturity and mental disorder. There must still be an uplift, but it will be moderated. In Eddy's case, I find that the balance to be struck between aggravating factors, which are not quite as high as in Scarlett's case, and the mitigation I have identified is such as to cancel each other out. In saying that, I have taken account of all the medical evidence and accept the diagnosis of ASD has some impact, but the extent to which it reduced your culpability in the circumstances of this offending is limited. This was undoubtedly a very serious offence with multiple aggravating factors. That is the context in which I impose minimum terms which are lengthy for offenders of your age, albeit significantly less than an equivalent sentence for an adult. The parole board will have to decide if and when either or both of you can be released. That will only happen if you no longer pose a danger. If you are released, you will remain on licence for life and you may be recalled to prison. I will now sentence each of you. You may remain seated. In both cases, the relevant statutory surcharge will apply. Scarlett Jenkinson.
As for their reactions, there was none. Scarlett and Eddy received the full punishment for their crimes. But what about a teenager who joined in the search for his own murder victim? This is Joshua Earl Patrick Phillips, who was charged with first-degree murder in Jacksonville, Florida.
Did he demonstrate it to you actually how he struck her?
Yes, sir. Took the baseball bat, and he did that. And then she quieted down, but then started back, and he then took a third full swing onto her head. And then he said he stabbed her in the throat.
With a knife?
Cut her throat, yes.
Phillips was just 14 when his world took a dark turn. He lived with his family in Jacksonville, a quiet kid with no history of violence. Maddie Clifton, an 8-year-old neighbor and friend, was part of his everyday life. But on November 3rd, 1998, everything changed forever. That day, Phillips and Maddie played baseball outside his home. An accident happened. The ball struck Maddie's eye. She cried and screamed. Terrified of his father's reaction, Phillips panicked. He dragged Maddie inside where he tried to silence her with a baseball bat. When Maddie was still alive under his bed, Phillips fatally stabbed her in the throat and chest.
Of Maddie Clifton's family filled nearly the entire side of the courtroom, listening very intently to what both attorneys said during their opening statements. Phillips, in his own right, sat quietly, looking down with his eyes closed much of the time as the prosecutor.
Maddie's disappearance sparked a desperate search. Phillips even joined the volunteers looking for her. Days later, his own mother discovered Maddie's body hidden in his bedroom. Police arrested Phillips, who confessed within hours. The details of the crime remain chilling. Prosecutors questioned parts of Phillips' story, pointing to inconsistencies and suggesting a deeper motive. Yet, no evidence of sexual assault was found. Phillips was tried as an adult, despite being just 14. His defense focused on panic and immaturity, but the court heard little from him directly. His lawyer chose not to call witnesses or let Phillips testify. The trial lasted only 2 days. The verdict was swift.
The jury finds the defendant guilty of murder in the first degree, as charged in the indictment.
Joshua Earl Patrick Phillips, it is the sentence of this court that you be confined in prison without the benefit of parole for the rest of your natural life.
Josh's reaction.
What do you think about Josh?
Cold. Years passed, and Phillips was granted a resentencing hearing. However, his sentence was upheld, with eligibility for resentencing starting in 2023. While he was not resentenced in 2023, the case is currently underway. As terrible as his crime was, Josh Phillips might still be seeking redemption. But what about John Honora, a teenager who wouldn't pity a frail old lady, but instead dragged her to her death? This is John Honora, who was charged with second-degree murder in New Orleans, Louisiana.
He's a little jerk. He's a little punk, okay? And he deserves to go where he's going. He is a demon, and God saw that demon that day. And that's how he got, Linda's arm got severed. God let her die with good people who loved her. And we've put away the demons now. And the future demons, they better look out, because the DA's office is not playing anymore.
So the night of March 21st, 2022 would shatter a community. John Honore was one of 4 teenagers involved in a brutal carjacking gone deadly. The victim, 73-year-old Linda Fricky, was dragged to her death on Bienville Street. Justice followed soon after. A jury convicted Honore of second-degree murder after just 1 day of trial, with deliberations lasting 4 hours. He was sentenced to life imprisonment, eligible for parole after 25 years due to his juvenile status at the time of the crime. Honore's reaction.
Again, John Honore, he did not apologize to the family at all. In fact, he said nothing to them.
Following this lack of remorse, the DA argued for the justification of the sentencing.
I also know there's not a single person in this room who believes that it is okay to drag a 73-year-old woman to her death. You know, and the juvenile system is set up in a way that a person would be done with any sentence at the age of 21. That wouldn't be accountability, that wouldn't be justice for a family, and nor would it be enough time to fix what was broken in that person that caused them to make bad choice after bad choice that took a life. So
the victim's family did not hold back either.
He's a little jerk. He's a little punk, okay? And he deserves to go where he's going. He is a demon. And God saw that demon that day. And that's how he got, you know, Linda's arm got severed. God let her die with good people who loved her. And we've put away the demons now. And the future demons, they better look out, because the DA's office is not playing anymore.
The other teenagers involved pleaded guilty to attempted manslaughter and received 20-year sentences. Despite their youth, they were prosecuted as adults, underscoring the severity of the crime.